Welcome to a guide to ground working. This is part 2 showing yield improvement on Farming Simulator 22 with me, MrSealyp. Part 2 then. Yield improvement on our crops. There's a few things I want to talk about related to this, and this is another reason why I did this in 2 parts, because there's a lot going on. The seasons system that we've got in place in FS22 has a few differences to the season system on FS19. What we're going to do is jump into this menu and we're going to go down to seasonal growth here. Now I've got it on no because I want to be able to skip through the days and I want to be able to plant and harvest whenever I want to. So one of the biggest differences there is if I put that on yes, you'll notice the left hand thing changes. And if we scroll up that menu, we'll get the crop calendar. So if you've got your seasons turned on, I say seasons, yeah, I mean, if you've got it turned on, you can only plant when it says you can plant in green, and you can only harvest when it says you can harvest. So all the time in between that is the time you have to wait. You can only do it then. Now, the only real difference between those two things is if I come back down and turn that off, there we go, put that on no, that menu disappears, so I'm not held accountable to those specific planting and harvesting windows. But here's the thing, there is still a long delay in crop growth, something we didn't have on FS19. So the big thing here is on FS19, if you put your growth, and this is the other thing FS22 doesn't have at the time of recording this, that's what I'm going to say as well, at the time of recording this, when this video gets posted, there's no growth speed option. On FS19 you can have it on off, slow, normal or fast, and if you put it on fast you could plant a crop and pretty much by the same time the following day your crop will be ready to harvest. There is no option to do that, and the other thing is it takes months for your crops to grow. So even though you can still plant it when you want and harvest it when you want, if you turn the season cycle off, it still takes a long time for your crops to grow. Now I've gone through this field 3 times now with corn in it because I wanted to have lime, it needed lime. So I had to go through 3 cycles until it reset itself. It took 6 months. Now I've got my months set on 1 day per month. So I thought, okay, is it months or is it days that it's recording as the time it needs? So I changed my month, rather than 1 day per month, to 5 days per month to see what would happen. It still took 5 months. So what you're going to have to be very, very wary of, again, coming back into this menu, if we come down to here, if it's going to take 5 to 6 months, and that's for corn, the other thing I'm going to check in this is I'm going to put something else in the field this time and see if it takes longer or shorter, because I've got a weird feeling in my head, and this is not what I'm testing specifically on this episode, that each crop might have a different length of time it takes to grow, which is going to be, that'll be a whole different episode. That'll be crop growth times will be something completely different. If you've got yours set for there, for example, days per month, if you've got that set on, I don't know, 14, 15 days per month, and it's still going to take 6 months for your crop to grow, you've got to cycle through a lot of days, especially if you want to skip forward to when your harvest is ready before you can get there. It does say there, sets the number of days per month. Changes will take effect in the next season. So depending about whereabouts you are in the season, spring, summer, autumn or winter, you might have to skip through a few days before it resets if you change this setting. So there's a lot going on here. What else was I going to talk about regarding that? I think that was that. Now, yield improvement. I had mentioned in part 1 about this kind of baseline. Now the baseline for me, you've got this line of yield, you've got the things that improve yield and the things that will give you a deficit in yield. So what I want to do is get my field to a baseline. As you can see with the field info open, it had corn in it, it's harvested, there's no fertilizing state, it needs lime and it needs ploughing. Now for me to get this to a baseline, I need to plough it. If I don't plough it, I get a deficit of 15%. Now I don't want to start with a deficit, I want to start with a level playing field or level field, as it were, and we can go from there. So this first one, I'm going to plough the field first, then I'm going to put my crop in it, I'm going to run through the cycle, harvest it, and we'll see what the yield is. That's going to be the baseline. Now this is my save point, so when I've done that, I'm going to reset like I did. What was I doing the video for? Mine's gone blank. But we're going to reset, and we'll come back to this point. The next time we do it, I'm not going to plough. I will plant my crop, we'll go again, and we should see a deficit. We should see it drop by 15%. Now, one thing I'm not touching in this video at all is weeds. According to the information provided, weeds give you a 20% reduction if there are weeds in your field. So if you take the weeds out, you'll get a solid, steady return. If you don't take the weeds out, there'll be a drop of 20% in your yield. But weeds are a whole different animal. There's so much going on with all those as well, and I didn't want to throw that all into the mix with this too. Now, I know people will argue, but that is part of yield management and yield, improvement. It is, but it's a lot. Just 20% is a big chunk. That's a fifth down on whatever your yield is. So just bear that in mind if you are running weeds. I'm not going to be running them. Lime needs to be done every 3 harvests. That will add 15%. If you watch the previous part 1 of this as well, if you do mulching, for example, as it is at the moment, it's just been harvested. We've got all of this stubble. If I mulch this, that will give you a 5% increase. And if I've got stones, so if I plough it or cultivate it, and I've got stones on the ground that I can press in with a roller, that can give me a 5% increase as well. So each of those things I'm going to need to test, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to do everything. So I will plough it, I'll lime it, I'll fertilise twice, we'll mulch it, we'll do everything we need to, and we'll see how much more the yield is for the field. Now I'm hoping this is going to work. I know it's a lot of talking to start off with, and what I'm going to do, I'm not going to show you. I'll explain what I'm going to do each time. We'll talk through the equipment. If you're new to the game, there's a few things you won't be aware of. If you've been playing the game a long time, you'll know of the various different things, but I'll talk through some of them a little bit quicker as we go. So the first thing I'm going to need to do is plough it. Now the ploughing, I'm using a standard plough, and again, if you watch the previous part 1, you'll know that standard ploughing will bring up small stones. The small stones I'm going to collect with the rock picker, because if I press them in with a roller, I'll get a 5% yield increase. I don't want any other increases on this one. I just want to have the ploughed state. So I'm going to plough it. I'm going to pick all the rocks out. We'll seed, and that's my baseline. That'll give me my start one. But I wanted to show you it as it is, because this is where we're going to reset to each time, because this is the important stage. The next time round, I'm just going to mulch it, then seed. Oh, hang on, that's the point. No, I'm not. I was going to do I wasn't going to plough it, was I? I've got quite a few steps to get through here. Right, I'm going to crack on. There are lots of ploughing options. Again, from that first video, part 1, you can use a plough, you can use a subsoiler, you can use a spader. If you use a subsoiler or a spader, it brings up big rocks, and the big rocks have to be cleared. You can't push those into the ground. So this, like I say, this is just going to give me my baseline. This will mean that when I do my harvest, I won't get a 15% deficit in my crop, because at the moment my field needs everything. And this is the point I wanted it to be in. Good to go. So what I'll do this. I'll get the stones out. I'll do a little bit as I start to seed it. I think I'm going to. Actually, I'm going to take the seeder and move over a little bit. I think I'm going to put canola in this time, because I know that corn takes 6 months. Well, that's what I have experienced. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try maybe canola in this time, to then see, will the canola take longer or a short amount of time, or are all the crops going to be 6 months? Like I say, this isn't specifically about that. This isn't about crop time or crop growth times. But while I've got it here, I might as well just give myself a little bit of something. I'm going to have to go back over that bit again. I'm not going to rotate the plough, I'm just going to crack on. Right, see you in a little while. Test 1 is now complete, and it answers, well, a couple of questions. This is my base, like I said, so all I did on that field was ploughed. So there's no deficit for it not being ploughed. This should be my base. 11,307 litres. What it also told me was we're now in November. Corn took 6 months to grow. The canola has taken 8 months to grow. So there is definitely a difference. Now obviously I'm going to be able to check that repeatedly. As I go through the process now with all the yields, I'm going to sort of reset this each time. Now, something I'm going to add to that is I was going to do them all individually. So one would be the 5% increase. Then what I'm going to do is compound. So when I reset this, we're going to do the deficit. So there'll be no ploughing. I'll just seed it. We'll run it again. That will show us the deficit. Then we're going to go on to the yield increases. So I will plough it. We already know what that is. We've got that here. With that ploughed one, I'm going to add stubble. I'm going to talk about each one as we do it. And then, so the next one then will be plough and stubble. And then I think we will, actually we stubble first, then plough. Then we'll press the stones in. That should give us another 5. And then it'll be all of that and lime, then it'll be all of that and fertilizing, then all of that and 2 fertilizing. So we should see an increase each time in the yield for each step, to show us what's going to happen. Like I say, and that's kind of the whole point of this. How do we improve yield? What steps do we need to take? I have over the back there lime spreaders. Actually, you know what? Now's probably the time to talk about it. I'm just thinking of time taken at each step as well. As far as fertilizing goes, there are a load of different ways we can fertilize in game. We've got fertilizer sprayers, so we can do liquid fertilizer if you want to go down that route. These are chemical fertilizers. We've got fertilizer spreaders. Some of these will do lime and fertilizer. I've gone for one that will do lime and fertilizer. I've got one full of lime, one full of fertilizer. That's for later on. We have obviously then got slurry spreaders. So if you've got animals, or we get to a point where we've got silos, we can buy again, where we can buy those products. So we've got slurry spreaders, and they'll do slurry and digestate from your animals. And we've got muck spreaders that will do muck. All of those will give you a fertilizing state. I'm not going into specifics of each one and flow rates, and this is about yield increase, not about the specific options and which one is a better option. This is just about, if we do a fertilizing state, whichever method we use, what is the increase going to be like? So there are a load of options available with regard to our fertilizer increase. And obviously moving forward in the game, as it was with FS19, we had that situation where we had Cambridge rollers that gave us fertilizing states, and we had all sorts of bits of equipment that either on purpose or by accident we got fertilizing states with. So reset. Then the next one will be the deficit. So I won't plow, I'm just going to seed. We'll go again. Actually, I won't even, all I'll do is I'll show the end bit. I suppose that probably makes more sense, doesn't it? So the next one will be, like I say, I'm going to reset from here. We'll go back to our previous. We won't plow. We'll seed it. We'll go. And we should see a deficit. We should get less than 11,307. We should get 15% less, according to what we're being told. So that's what we're going to see. Test 2 is complete. So no ploughing this time. No ploughing. We should have seen a deficit of 15%. By my calculation, 11,307, 15% of that is 1,696. So we should be looking at about 9,611, 9,700. We've got 10,054. That is definitely down on 11, what we were on 11,307. So there is a drop. We have lost crop because we didn't plough. There is a deficit for not ploughing. So that's good. We know that. We know we need to plough. Next set, I'm going to reset. All the ones moving forward, we will be ploughing. But this next set, we're going to mulch first. We're going to plough, because we know what our base figure is. We know it's 11,307. So we're going to mulch first and plough. But ploughing brings up the stones. We're also, in this one, we're going to use the roller, and we're going to roll the stones back in, which is supposed to give us another 5% on top. So it'll be 5% for the mulching, 5% for putting the stones in on top of our base. So it should be, in addition to the 11,307, we should have a 10% increase, which is about no, 1,330, somewhere around there. So we should see an increase of 10%. I'm going to do both at the same time. It just makes more sense, because what I can do is each time I do one of the processes, I can save the game there. So next time I reset, some of the processes are already done. Otherwise, I'm having to kind of reset as we go. So let's say, yeah, next one, we have to mulch first, obviously, because we can't plough then mulch because there's nothing to mulch. So we'll have to mulch first, then plough, then we'll roll the stones in. Then we'll seed, we'll go again, we should see an increase. Next one after that will be those processes. We'll lime. Lime should add another 15%, and then it'll be the 2 fertilizing states. Something I did find out as well while I was testing this, I bought a seeder out that was a direct drill, started running it up here, and I got a fertilizing state. So off of part 1, when I said, oh, ignore what I said, no, I think it was, and that was one that didn't, that was just seed only. It wasn't a seed and fertilizer one, but it was a direct drill. It gave me a fertilizing state. So that looks like that's a thing. But we can check that out later on when we do our first fertilizing state. Let's go with the mulching. And like I said when I did the part 1 of this, I mean, is that kind of thing, why wouldn't you do this? If you're going to get a 5% increase anyway, every crop when you finish is going to have crop stubble. If you're not bothered about 5%, if you think, oh yeah, but this is an extra process, it's going to cost me money, it's time, it's only 5%, I'm not bothered, that of course is absolutely fine. And that's the point about doing these videos, and this one about improving yield. You might not want to touch this at all. That's entirely up to you. But to show it and say that you can do it is absolutely perfect. Once that's done, I will plough. And then, like I say, I'm not going to pick up the stones this time. We're going to roll them in. So we'll have our base level and then our mulching and stones. So we should see an increase. Once I've got those steps done, that's where I'll save it, because then I'll come back to that. So next time I won't have to do these steps again. The mulching and the stones will be done. Then it'll be lime, like I said, then we'll add and we'll go from there. So what I can do, once I've got a couple of rows done, when we get down to the other end, I'll hop into the plough. I'll get the plough running behind it, and then once that's done a few strips and I've got workers going on each of those, then I can jump into the roller and we'll roll the stones under. Good to go. It's not going to seem like a huge increase, but what you've got to remember is this isn't a massive field, it's a fair sized field. But you've got to scale this up, kind of, you know, obviously if you're doing multiple fields, or you're doing, we don't know what maps are going to come out, if we're going to do big American ones with huge fields, or you're going to combine fields together, these 5% increases and 10% and 15% for lime and the 23% for the fertilising, that adds up. You know, I'm looking forward to see, but by the end of this, and we've done all of the steps, including the lime and 2 fertilising states, just how much we've got over and above the 11,307 we started with. Plow. Really want it the other way over. as I head back down the freshly harvested field, we are sitting at 11,498 litres. Remember our base line is 11,307. That's not 10%. 10% is 1,130, isn't it? If the baseline is 11,300, 10% is one. It's not a 10% increase. It's not even a 5% increase from 11,307 to 11,498. So the mulching and supposedly the squashing of stones back in, which gives you a 5% increase. I'm not seeing it. Not at the moment. So, onwards. The next test. Reset again. We're going to add to that. So the next step will be lime added on top, which should be another 15%. We should see an increase of 15%. That's what it's telling us. Where am I getting this information from, you may ask? Well, we come back down to this here and we go to improving yield. It says at the very top there, spread fertilizer twice, plus 23% each time. Spread lime every 3 harvests, plus 15%. And using a mulcher on stubble, plus 5%. To avoid a 35% yield malus deficit, remove weeds, 20%, and then use a plow after root crops such as corn, potatoes, sugar beets, and sugarcane. You know, I said earlier, was it in the previous one, part 1? I couldn't remember what they all were. Otherwise, it's 15%. We've negated the 15%. We've supposedly added the 5% on for the stubble. And then if we go down, no, we go down there, that one that also says down the bottom, rollers for fields also remove small stones and furthermore increase your yield by 5%. So that's where I'm getting the figures from. We will roll again, liming, and then we'll go. That should increase it. And then what I've decided to do for the final one, I was going to do the fertilizing in 2 chunks. 23%, 23%. You get the idea. You get where it's going. 23 and 23 is 46. We should see a big jump up in yield by adding our 2 fertilizer stages. So what I'm hoping to do is do the 2 fertilizer stages in, I say in one go, but you know what I mean. I'll do the fertilizing and then we'll mine's gone blank, and then in the first growth stage we'll probably run it again. But the other thing as well is the question will probably be asked, what order do we need to do these things in? Well, there's no hard and fast rules. People do it all different ways. I used to do a lot of my fertilizer, well, all of my crop work, all of my field prep before I even put any seed in the ground. A lot of people will fertilize while they seed. Obviously you've got to do your stubble mulching before you plow or cultivate, otherwise you're going to cultivate away and you can't do anything. But once you've harvested a field in this state now, I could lime it straight away, or I could fertilize it, or you know, there's all different ways around of doing it. But I would say definitely the stubble, that's got to be done. Liming, generally speaking, putting your pH on would need to be done early, because if you're going to plow or cultivate, you want to plow or cultivate that into the ground. Obviously the way I've done it, because I wanted to do the ploughing situation first, the ploughing's already been done. So the lime will go on top, which you wouldn't really want to do. So yeah, that's where we're at. Let's move forward and see how we go with the next steps. Okay, adding to what's already been done. So the field was ploughed, it has been mulched, it has been stone squashed. Now we're going to add the lime element to it. I've got the Braidell K165 with extension and spreader bar. Now the thing with this being as well, unlike precision farming where you've got the auto application rates and stuff like that, that's not the case. It's normally not too bad. Having the spreader bar gives you a much wider spread on this and helps significantly. So we'll get the lime down, then we'll seed and we'll run the whole thing again. And then, like I say, the last test we'll stick it all in. It's nice to see the different animations that have been done. Which hire a worker, it means I can spin the camera and not have to worry about everything else. I hope it just covers properly, but yeah, it looks good. What I'll probably do when I do the final test is I'll have the lime state as it is now, I'll fertilise, then seed, and either I'll have a seed with a fertiliser. I don't think it will do it. The problem you've got is when you're doing fertilising states as well, is, generally speaking, if you want to get multiple fertilising states down, in this case we only need to do 2 in game, generally you have to change the field state. So because I've got lime down here, if I put fertiliser on top, that's fresh fertiliser. If I then seed on top with a seeder that has fertiliser in it, that registers there's already fertiliser on the ground, so technically it doesn't always, never used to, put a second one down straight away. What you would have to do is change the state of the field from just been fertilised, and then you could run it again. That's why I generally would do my fertilising early. As soon as I'd done the harvest, I'd get over there either with lime or fertiliser. If it needed ploughing, I'd get it ploughed, and then because you've changed the field state, you could then get away with doing it again. I'm going to have to go over that bit. I want to make sure it's done properly. I don't want to leave any gaps. And every single time I've done this, it has taken 8 months for the canola. There we go. See you at the end. We're getting there. We're getting results. That's the thing. We're getting results. Okay, that's an increase. 15%, which is what the liming's supposed to do, should work out at, what was it, 1,696 litres. We've gone from 11,498 up to 12,746. That's an increase of 1,248 litres. It's not far out, and it is an increase. Not quite 15%, but I suppose there's going to be some vagaries. There might be some odds and ends different here and there. But that's definitely increased. The liming has made a difference, and again, over a big enough field, and as you build up that capacity, it's going to make a difference. It's still an increase, it's still a yield improvement, and that's the whole point. So, final step then. The liming will already be done when we go back onto the next test one, and then it'll be 2 fertilising states. That should see a jump up of, well, it says 46%. 23% for each fertilising state. We should see a fairly large jump up now. And again, if you do 1 fertilising state, fine. If you do both, that's fine. But the whole point about this is showing you how to improve your yield. And we have done that. We are improving the yield each time. Is it exactly percentage-wise what they said? Not exactly, but it's still an increase. We are improving yield each time we do one of these steps. So whichever ones you do in whichever order is entirely up to you. As you can see, the field is now harvested. It all needs resetting. So let's reset, shall we? Let's do this. This is the final one. There could be arguments either way around. Seed with fertiliser first, then fertilise afterwards. I'm going to fertilise first. I mean, I'm going to try with the seeder with fertiliser. Oh, that'll go a bit wider actually than the liming wheel. That's pretty good. I'm not 100% convinced that I'll be able to seed and fertilise. Like I say, because I'm putting fertiliser down now, the fertilising state is fertilised. I would like to think, and it would never really worked on FS19, that as you seed, the seed goes in first, then the fertiliser. So it should register it's been seeded, and then it will allow another fertilising state, but it never really kind of works that way. But whatever happens, whether it will allow me or won't allow me, when I skip ahead, I'll wait for the first growth stage, and then what I'll do is, actually that's what I was going to test. Yeah, it's still coming out. I didn't know whether they had done it. It will come with a precision farming, I would imagine. I did wonder whether they have set it so that when you come off the field, you wouldn't lose fertiliser or anything like that. The seeding always works, but the fertiliser never quite seems to. But with precision farming, that works a lot better. Yeah, so 23% increase going down now. We'll get our seeds in the ground. I will skip to that. If it works, and we seed and it manages to do a second fertilising state, fantastic. We'll check the ground now because we need to put this onto soil composition. As you can see, our first fertilising state is going down now. And then when I do the seeding, if the second one works, I'll show you here on the screen. If it doesn't, like I say, I'll do it in the first growth stage. Whatever happens when we come to harvest, it will have had 2 fertilising states. And fingers crossed, we should see a nice big bump in yield. No, it isn't. I didn't think it would. Both are going down, but when you look at the screen, I've still got the first fertiliser state that went down, so technically I'm wasting fertiliser now. Had I done it the other way round, it would have been the same. It wouldn't have allowed me to put another fertilising estate down separately because it would have been registering that with the seeder I'd fertilised. So I suppose technically I should have done it the other way round, only because I'm wasting fertiliser now because it's saying it's putting it down and it isn't. But that is one of those things. Another thing I will say is when you're doing the seed bed preparation, the difference between the seed bed prep and when you're seeding, it's really hard to tell the difference. If I hop out now and you see where the seed bed prep, I mean the only difference is a bit of fleckling. You just see that bit of fleckling on the ground, and when the seed goes in, well no, there's still a bit, not as much. It's really hard to tell the difference between the two. I suppose that is maybe a little bit darker. I'm just looking up that way. Maybe darker to the right. There is definitely less fleckling. So there is definitely a difference. Right. I'll either see you when we're ready to harvest, or I'll show you. It'll just be a quick clip. I won't talk on the next bit of me just sticking down the next fertilising state. As you can see on the field, it says growing canola in, fertilised 50%. So it just needs the second part to go down. And so the final one complete. We're coming at 16,116. Previous one was 12,746. It is an increase. Is it 46%? The trouble is, I know they crunch the numbers on these things, and people come back with 101 different answers and reasons why. It could be that it's taken from the very base figure when we did the second test and we didn't plough, and we had our lowest number that we had. If the percentages are all taken from that real low figure without anything being done, then I guess, yeah, potentially it could be 46%, and then added in with all the other things it could be. I was taking it as a cumulative because our last one with everything done was 12,746. We then did 2 fertilising states. Each one of them are supposed to give you a yield increase. Like I say, maybe it's not a yield increase from our previous harvest, but maybe from the very baseline is where those figures are coming from. But regardless of that, it's a yield increase. You know, when we started off at, what was it, 11,307 with ploughing only, and we're up to 16. Oh, yeah, it was 16, whatever I said. Yeah, over 16,000. We have improved our yield step by step by step as we've gone up, which is what we set out to do. It's what I set out to show. The other thing I suddenly realised I didn't show and I spoke about when I talked about the machines and equipment and stuff, which you'll find obviously in this section here, vehicles and tools. But if you're looking for your fertilisers, and again, this is at the time of recording, your big bag pallets for your seed and your solid fertiliser in this one. If you want to go for the big bags themselves, your seed and fertiliser are here. Your limes here as well. There's lime in the other one as well. If for doing your liming, under pallets, we've got liquid fertilizers. There's pallets of solid fertilizers as well. Like I say, I haven't touched on weeds. I'm not even sure I will do a video on weeds because that was mind-boggling last time, let alone now. But that's where you'll find all of those peripherals. Now, obviously, if you're watching this much further down the line, after the game has been released, potentially there'll be modded pallets. There'll be all different versions of ones you can get, different prices, different quantities. There'll be potentially the buy anything silos where you can go and fill up with your fertilizer and your seed and things from a silo. So at the time of recording this is only what, the 24th, is it? I'm trying to think what day it is. I've completely lost track of time. Yeah, 24th November. So the game's only been out officially for 2 days. And there's a lot to get your head around. But I hope you found it useful and informative in some way, shape or form. If you have, please give us a like. If you don't subscribe yet, please do. If you want to leave a comment, feel free. And if you want to share this video, then please be my guest. Whatever you should choose to do. as always, thanks for watching.